Hello, welcome back to Mountain Jim Card Collectibles. Well, Logan Paul made a big sale. In fact, it's the biggest trading card sale in history. And let's face it, if you're a hard worker, if you've done a lot of, tough jobs in your lifetime, apparently we're doing it wrong, because I guess you have to be a big grift artist, to sell your stuff these days for big cash if you want to get rich. I guess just hard work is the fool's notion of making money, isn't it? So, when I look at big sales like this, apparently I read that Anthony Scaramucci's son bought this card from Logan Paul, so he's obviously wealthy too. But when I look at trading cards in general, I just feel like it's all hype. I mean, if I had the money, if I had $17 million, I would never purchase this Pokemon card for that much. I would be purchasing an asset that's definitely going to hold more real value in comparison to the speculative value that this card is all about. And there is some rarity to this card, don't get me wrong, but if you know the story, it's been graded numerous times. So in essence, it's not a true 10. I mean, if it was a true 10, it would have been graded once as a 10, end of story, But when you have to game the system and keep sending a card in, to get a better grade, well, let's face it, I just don't believe it's a true 10. And, this kind of puts a black eye on sports cards to an extent, because the highest sports card sold is, the 2007-2008 Upper Deck Exquisite Collection Dual Logo Man. That was sold for $12.93 million. Kevin O'Leary, was part of the group that purchased it. And, when you look at these cards, whether it's the Pokemon card or this Bryant Jordan card, which one would you rather have? I probably prefer this card myself, to be honest. I'd rather have the Jordan Kobe card. But in this world of speculative bullshit, well, Pokemon is now the biggest card to get, I guess, as far as pricing goes. And that says a lot about this hobby, doesn't it? A lot of people want to say that Pokemon is just a fad, and maybe it is, but let's face it, the Pokemon fad now has the biggest trading card sale of history, strangely enough. And then we can read what people are saying about this, because, most people are just not impressed. Most people see Logan Paul as a grifter, That's basically the way I view him, too. Let's face it, this guy isn't, doing hard work. He's kind of like the snake oil salesman, you know what I mean? When I think of people working hard, I think of my dad, working many, many years before he officially retired from his job, I think of a lot of other people, maybe my cousin who, he's a plumber, owns a plumbing business. He works hard for his money, and he would never, be able to cash in as much as Logan Paul did, for just being able to, wear his Illustrator card around his neck, and do his WWE and, do his other stuff, turn off all the comments for his posts on X, I'm just not very respectful towards Logan Paul when I look at the way that people live their lives in this world. And I never will be, I used to be a car salesman, and people gave me a lot of BS for being a car salesman. A car salesman is nothing compared to what this guy does, I mean. So let's read what this one says. This just came out 4 hours ago from, I guess, Dexerto on X. Fortunately, X is back up because it was crashed out for a while today. Like it says here, Logan Paul's PSA 10 Pikachu Illustrator Pokemon card sold for $16,492,000, setting a Guinness World Record for the most expensive trading card ever sold at auction. Whoopie-doo. Now, before I go too much further, I did pull up the most expensive coin ever sold. Because this is kind of like a horse race at this point. This is just a Google Gemini AI overview. The 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle is the most expensive coin ever sold, fetching $18.9 million at 2021 Sotheby's auction. It is the only specimen legally authorized for private ownership, as almost all others were melted down after the 1934 Gold Reserve Act. Now, when I look at this coin, it legitimately has scarcity to it. It really does. It's a nice looking coin, nice double eagle. I'm trying to sell a 1906 double eagle currently, which is just a copy, it's not the real thing, American Mint, but I do like these double eagles. I do like the scarcity of them in comparison to sports cards. If you're into collectibles, unfortunately, sports cards aren't the most scarce thing out there, And I just feel like right now, a lot of it's just built on hype, as far as sports cards go. So anyway, it says here, key details on the 1933 Double Eagle. Final sales price was $18,872,250. That's a lot of cash. It was once owned by King Farouk of Egypt and remained hidden for decades. The composition is 90% gold and 10% copper. All right. So to me, a coin holds more real value than speculative value, just for that fact, for the rarity, the scarcity, the composition. Because let's face it, if you compare just this coin, which has 90% gold, 10% copper, in comparison to, a Pokemon Pikachu Illustrator card, which just has some ink on it, some cardboard, went through a print machine, I see a lot more value in this coin than that card, okay? So the issue with purchases like the Pokemon card, or even the coin to an extent, has to deal with something that I am always kind of wrestling with in the back of my mind, especially in this hobby, because a lot of people get confused of what's going on in this hobby, all right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about real value in comparison to speculative value, okay? This is just a Google Gemini AI overview. Real value represents the intrinsic measurable worth of an asset based on fundamentals like cash flow or utility, often adjusted for inflation. Conversely, speculative value is driven by market sentiment, hype, and future expectations, often causing price to exceed actual value. And I could say that for all sports cards. Real value focuses on long-term stable returns. Think about that. So when you put money, like say this, we'll say $17 million out there. All right. Scaramucci's son, who purchased it, I guess is crossing his fingers that the value is going to go up, okay? But if he was smart, he would have used that money to purchase something that the money's going to keep flowing in. Now, for instance, I used to be a realtor. I would take $18 million and likely purchase an apartment building for that much. It may take some time to, get your value back, and hopefully you're not one of these guys that raises the rates on your tenants, If you keep them about the rate where it should be, you will get your value back, and then you can make your profit, And there's other ways of doing that with $18 million too. I mean, you could look at maybe just buying a business that's for sale, You see my point? So there's more real value there. Or else you could use that money, like the smart thing, in my opinion, would have been to spend the $17 million and just buy a bunch of maybe savings bonds, something like that, or even gold bullion, I wouldn't waste it on a card. I'm not buying in the hype, you see. That's the thing about speculative values. It's all hype for the most part. It's all market sentiment. It's all future expectations. It's not real value. Real value would be if I showed you or gave you $17 million worth of bullion and you gave me cash for that. Yeah, that has real value to it. And it's like a blue chip stock. You're not going to lose a lot of money on the gold bullion. The value is always going to more or less stay where it's at. It might fluctuate up and down a little bit, but it's not going to go through the big, massive swings that we see with sports cards, So, like it says here, real value focuses on long-term stable returns. Speculative value focuses on short-term price volatility. So, Scaramucci's son, he better get out there just like Logan Paul and start hyping up this card more and more to get it sold. I just don't see him doing it. Why? He's not as big of a celebrity as, say, Logan Paul. In fact, you've probably never even heard of, Scaramucci's son before. You know what I mean? So key differences, basis. Real value is built on fundamentals, earning assets. Speculative value is built on hope, market trends, or potential events. Yep. And that's why I'm just always surprised to see people dumping so much money on sports cards. Risk. Real value investing has lower risk, while speculative investing carries high risk and high volatility. Yes. And that's the danger in putting all your money into, say, a trading card. The risk is just so enormous. I would never do it. Time horizon. Real value is generally long-term investing. Speculative value is short-term trading. Yep. And that's what I mean is Scaramucci's son has a window here, but I feel like it's closing. And why is it closing? Because he's not a big celebrity that can go out and hype it up like Logan Paul. Examples. Real value includes blue chip stocks, real estate with rental income, or bonds. Speculative value includes cryptocurrencies, meme stocks, or art. Yeah, and I definitely do not like crypto digital currencies. A lot of people say it's the mark of the beast. That's going to be the thing, like the Bible says, the beast system. Where people decide what you can buy, what you can sell. You know what I mean? If they put a limit on you. So I definitely don't believe in cryptocurrencies either for speculative stuff. While real value offers security, it may provide lower short-term returns. Speculative value offers potential for high, rapid profits, but risks significant loss if the market turns. Now, so if you want to spend a lot of money, if you want to spend $20 million, $18, $15, $10 million, $1 million, I would recommend that you look at something that maintains more real value. If you don't have much money, that's when the great speculative value, comes in. So let's say, hey, you ran across the Pokemon Illustrator card and you paid $100 for it. Yes, then it's time to go all in and, hype it up and this and that. You see, I would never go that much in on a card because let's face it, that's probably the highest value it's going to get, Unless maybe you have someone, that has a lot of followers. Maybe Donald Trump will purchase that card, and hype it up. And, hey, buy this card for $25 million or $30 million. And you might be able to pull it off doing it that way. But let's face it. If you're not a very famous person, good luck. Because we know there just isn't much value in that card itself. It's just a piece of cardboard, that was printed out, cha-chunk, cha-chunk, cha-chunk. And it's not like they were doing with the coin where they're destroying everything. We read that about, the highest selling coin ever sold. They went and destroyed all the other ones. That didn't happen with Pokemon Illustrator, all right? So back to X, and let's see what people are saying about it, So you heard my explanation on, even if I was a millionaire, you would never see me around this Illustrator card with a 20-foot pole. It would be like, get that away from me, get that away from my money. So, like right there. He paid significantly less for the card when he purchased it in 2021. Yes, that's the way you do the stuff. He's pretty smart, What did he do? He pulled the parachute cord. He hyped it up, because he knew. He knew he'd have to hype up this card because it's really not very special. Dude belongs in jail. Stole that card straight from his fans. Yeah, the liquid marketplace thing is really ugly too, he just, in my opinion, he just grifted this thing up and down, he really did. And that's the issue with these cards. Think about it. If this was a $16.5 million purchase of an apartment building, he wouldn't have had to grift near as much. The apartment building says everything it needs to say, you know what I mean? Or let's just say he's got a bunch of gold bullion, He wouldn't have had to have gone out and, do all the grunt work, But when it's just a piece of cardboard that really doesn't hold much real value at all, other than speculative value, it's just, live and learn, people. Live and learn. And, the snake oil salesman's making some big money here, folks. $16.5 million for a trading card. That's insane. Where do people get money for all these? Well, I believe it's inexperience. People who have a lot of money may not have a lot of experience about economic factors. And the reason why I look at things differently is because, maybe if you're a big celebrity, with millions of dollars, you can just do this type of stuff. You can pull it off. But let's face it, guys like me, I've had to work hard my whole life for just minimum wage or just above minimum wage. We have to look at life a lot differently, Same card he used to scam millions of dollars from his followers with. Yeah, and that's just it, with these snake oil salesmen, it's all a matter of finding, the right tool to do it with, to pull off the scam. Definitely an organic sale with no shenanigans. Yes. Organic sale, yes. Every time I look at that card, I just feel like I have to take a knife and cut through all the BS hype. You know what I mean? It's like, where's this card at? Where's it at? It's all hype. Can't wait for the 2030 headline. Man trades Charizard for a mid-sized Mediterranean island. Yeah. And this just goes along with the Grift show. We don't want our people educated. We don't want them buying gold bullion or apartment buildings or real estate or businesses. We want them buying a little piece of cardboard for all that money. Man spent $16 million on cardboard Pikachu, and somewhere teachers using their own money to buy classroom supplies. Yeah, and that's just part of the disparities of living in the United States. It's so ugly in that, view. I wish it wasn't. People like me, we sit and watch the USA, and I always ask myself, I just don't know how much longer I can continue to live in this country, because it just feels like it's for elites, and grift artists and, just millionaires and billionaires and their families. It's just like, my dad fought in the war, my family's always fought in the war. We're always hard workers, but let's just face it, this country doesn't love hard workers. They love snake oil salesmen. Don't pretend they don't. They would rather kiss a snake oil salesman ass like Logan Paul all day and night than kiss the ass of a hard-working man like my dad, who put in over 30 years of work to retire, It's true. That's just the American way, and it's really ugly, I wonder if they will add a scam the fractionalized owner sentence in that Guinness World of Records. Yeah, that's just it. Is a lot of people like to forget about this stuff. Guinness World Records comes running in, but they don't focus on liquid marketplace now, do they? Someone just successfully washed $16 million. Now, I don't know. I hope that, this is all legitimate. I'm guessing it is, but you just never know in this day and age. Scammer Paul is back with another hit. By the way, this card was initially graded as 9, and he had to send it in again, even though the card have issues, and it's not a 10. Yes, that's the biggest issue I have with this card is they had to game the system to get a 10, A true 10 goes in, it gets a 10, end of story, it's always a 10, it's not the gaming of the system, we saw the card, it does have damage on it, it's a bad look. There are people in the streets starving, but y'all are buying a piece of shitty paper. Do better. Yes. You're right. He could have used that money to make a beautiful food bank, he could have done so much for people. There's so many people struggling in the USA these days, if he would have created an organization like a food bank, it could have helped so many people out and it would actually, a nonprofit that could make money as well. I don't know what to say about these type of purchases. Logan Paul flipping a Pokemon card for $16.5 million is absolutely insane. That's generational wealth from a childhood nostalgia. The fact it's a world record proves collectibles are a real investment game now. If you're the right person, if you're a famous person, who can talk a lot about what they're selling, you have to be a big famous snake oil salesman to really hype up a lot of these big sales, I told you, I feel bad for the person who bought the card because let's face it, if it's Anthony Scaramucci's son, have you ever heard of him before? Likely not. Neither have I. I didn't even know he had a son. You think he's going to go out, and do WWE and do all these events and, hook up with golden auction all the time. We're selling this, like Logan Paul. No. And that's why I think it was really just a bad purchase because when he tries to resell this, he's probably going to take a big loss. You know what I mean? And not to mention all the gaming that went into getting the thing graded. It was graded numerous times to get a 10. It makes you wonder how it even got a 10. Would they slip the grader a bribe or something? Come on. So anyway, how are you feeling about all this? Do you think that the person who bought this card is a big sucker? Do you believe they didn't do their homework? Do you believe they probably should have bought something that held more real value in comparison to a hyped up piece of Pokemon cardboard that has quite a few other printed copies out there? Maybe they're not PSA 10s, but let's face it, that card, in my opinion, is not a true PSA 10 because it had to be, re-entered numerous times to get that grade, and we've looked at the card. There is damage on it, So anyway, are you buying into the snake oil salesman Logan Paul's sale, or are you calling bullshit on it? I'm calling bullshit on it, and I explained why, Cards to me can only go so far up in value because they don't hold any significant real value to them. Meaning that, that Pokemon card is not made out of gold, all right? It just isn't. If you purchase that coin, at least you're going to get some gold there. If you purchased $17 million worth of gold bullion, you're going to be happy. Trust me. All the risk that goes with a slabbed up PSA 10 Pokemon Illustrator card that really just has, rarity because of the grade. No, I'm just, no thanks. I'm too smart for that. I would rather go out and buy some expensive artwork for that much money. Maybe a Van Gogh, maybe a Monet. Something that has more rarity to it. Something that didn't come, strictly off of a printer. Anyway, I'd like to thank my subscribers. You're the reason I keep doing these episodes. I'd like to thank my viewers as well. If you could just hit that subscription button, it would really help my channel out significantly. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. I'm out of here.